I'm gonna pause it. Is that okay?
That's awesome.
Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Ariel Frost. I am the Manager of Partnerships and Learning here at Ingenuity, and I use they, them pronouns. I am a caramel skin colored person with red lipstick and a red scarf with some music notes on it and some curly dark brown hair. I am joined here by my colleague, Courtney Seam-Throne, who's the Director of Partnerships and Learning, and also our facilitator for today, Emily Leonard, the founder and lead teaching artist of IdeaBox Integrated Arts. So we would like to begin today's gathering with a land acknowledgement to recognize and honor Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of this land, and as a step toward correcting the practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture toward inviting and honoring the truth. This virtual conference is taking place on the stolen land of the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa nations. As we begin this program, let's honor these ancestral grounds on which we now occupy and begin to rethink and reflect on our own relationship and responsibility to this land and its original peoples. A few housekeeping notes. If you would like, please feel free to update your name to include personal pronouns and your organization's name. Also note that this session is being recorded, and slides and handouts will be available following the session, and closed captioning is available. And then we just have a few session norms. First, we have a heading of equity, of voice and learning. Under that, we have two bullets. The first one is take space, make space. And that is just the idea that some of us may be extroverts and some of us may be introverts. So just be mindful of the space that you're holding while you're participating in our program today. And then also speak from personal experience and don't speak for others. And then under the heading, how we show up for ourselves and each other, the first bullet is openness to learning. So that's just recognizing that we're all learners in this space. Flexibility and patience. We know that technology is sometimes at play. The gremlins might come out. I've done everything that I can to keep them away, but sometimes they get past me. And then use the chat box mindfully. So make sure that anything that you're putting in the chat is relevant to the conversation that we're having now, or if you have a question or technical issue, then you can direct message Courtney or me. And then confidentiality. So we want to take away lessons, but not personal content. Alrighty, so without further ado, Emily Leonard.
I did that perfectly. I managed to stop my remote control just as I started. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. I can't see anybody. If you're willing, would you turn your camera on for just a moment so I can see faces, and you can turn it off again right after that. get anxious when I can't see anybody who's learning from me. I'm just gonna scroll up and down a little bit so I can see your faces. Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. It's fine if you don't want to turn your camera on, but I use camera on and off for some of my activities. So welcome. This workshop has this really long title. It's called Inclusive Practices and Tools for Executing Spectacular Student Artist Ideas. And to summarize, that means when your students have a wild idea, instead of saying we can't do that, these are the tools we use to do that, to use their ideas. And it should be able to go forward now. It worked. Welcome. That's the whole slide. So this is what's going to happen. We have two sections to this, a creative development timeline section, and that will be more evident what that is. And that'll be like kind of the first 2/3 of the workshop. We're going to go step by step through a timeline that can be applied to hopefully any art form, any type of project, any duration of class, from a workshop to a full year program. May you all have full year programs. And the second part is called Really Useful Tools. This is where I'm going to show you a bunch of actual physical tools, things that you can hold in your hand that you can use with students of a variety of ages to make some of these very, very big ideas. Big ideas. I'm going to start with who I am. I always forget to introduce myself, so I'm glad I have a slide. My name is Emily Leonard. It even says Miss Emily on my shirt here. And I am the executive director and lead teaching artist of IdeaBox Integrated Arts. And lead teaching artist to me is an important part of that title because I have had administrative positions off and on for the last 25 years. And there have been a few times where I was working exclusively in administration and not in the classroom. And those times were not good times for me. I didn't do that, by the way. So somebody might have bumped their thing. So yes, I love to be in the classroom, and I get a lot of value towards my practice out of being in the classroom. And I think it really helps me understand the teaching artists who work for IdeaBox, often in the same classroom as me. But IdeaBox is only 2 or 3 years old. I've been working in teaching arts administration, like it says on the slide, 30-ish years. But because we specialize in interdisciplinary work, we are a very small company because it turns out there's not a lot of people out there who do all the things. So if you are a person who does all the things, please reach out to IdeaBox Integrated Arts and let us know. We are looking for more people who do all the things. I didn't know what interdisciplinary was for the first many years of my career, or didn't really process that you don't have to pick one art form. And I spent a lot of time worrying about what kind of artist I was before I finally realized that there is a kind of artist that is more than one art form, and it's called interdisciplinary. So that is the work I do, and the work I bring into classrooms is always interdisciplinary. We're usually working at minimum in both a visual and a performance medium. And we mix and match visual and performance in lots of different ways that you will learn about as I go through this presentation and show you the stuff I do. For myself, when I work as an artist, I work in the off-loop, late night, fringe art scene doing weird stuff because that's what makes me happy. I have a background in both musical theater and surrealist art, and they are very closely related. And I love them both. We'll never hear a word against musical theater. The ideal gateway theater drug. Okay, it's not really a drug. It's an art form. So this is what we're going to be looking at today. This is the creative development unit timeline that I use with my own teaching artists and myself. This is intended to be a very broad guide and not a strict set of percentages. So these percentages are there to kind of help one look at an overall lesson plan and say, did I leave enough time for this? Is this going to be done early enough in the process? Not to be like, you have to figure out exactly where the 20% mark is and put a slash there, and that's when this has to be done. This is built over years of different types of creative processes, from playwriting to fashion design, puppetry, pop-up museum creation. So this is a mix of things we've found out through trial and error, some common sense stuff, and a lot of it should be familiar to you from your own art form, because this is also based on the process we use as artists to create art, as adults, professional artists to create art. So the goal is to make sure that our students don't just understand, how to do the moves. We're going to talk more about technique versus theory later, but not just how to go through the motions of the art form, but how to create the art from beginning to end. How to have an idea of wanting to make art out of this type of thing and have a product in the end that looks like something like their idea. So we're going to go through this one section at a time. But first, I'm going to use my pointer to point out what all the sections are. We start with introductions, expectations, early success. I think for most teachers, we know we must start with introductions. But also that's how we start any rehearsal process or any group making process. Then we move into a section where we're skill building, going over the project parameters and designing the project. And this is kind of a flexible line here, depending on how much of your project involves design versus performance. Then in the center section, we have what our major making section and what we call continued skill building. I'll go over that in detail. Targeted, good word, skill building. And planning for the performance or event. And in the middle of this, where we are roughly halfway through our entire process, we have a check-in point where the teaching artist and student check in and decide if they're going to make it to their goals or if they want to change their goals. Then we have the project ready to go in a rough draft form, roughly 60% of the way through. Then we get into what we would call tech in the theater, dance, probably music departments, gallery hang, gallery install, in a lot of visual arts fields, depending on what your final product is going to be. Again, this one might be smaller or larger depending on things like when you have access to your space and what the scale is of your final product or performance. You may have a lot more of this and a lot less of that. Go back. Okay. Then a 5% rough estimate for the event or show. I just picked random numbers so that the sliver wouldn't be too small to see. And also all the things that go around the event. When I'm doing contracts for teaching artists, they will have as many hours in this section here as all of the rest of their classes, because the buildup of hours right before an event are always so intense. Like I might be on site for 8 hours show day after having only had 8 single 1-hour classes with students. So I balanced all that out and put a 5% number there. And then the piece after the performance that we hope we get to do with our students, reviewing, reflecting, and celebrating. So we're going to go through each of these sections in more detail and talk about how we can give students the tools they need to make the art they want to make. I'm going to start with introductions, expectations, early successes. And I'm not going to explain what all those things are. Oh, see, I did a really good job proving this. Names are very important. Learn your students' names. What are the participants expecting? And what do you need to add or correct or clarify? Do they know what you're actually going to teach them, or do they have a totally weird idea of what it is you're about to do? A simple project that shows them they can do this art form, something that you can maybe do in 1 day or 10 minutes, depending on how long your entire process is. And that was supposed to be the first thing that showed up. Pre-assess. And I'm going to go through each of these in a smaller detail like this. Oh, we're going to pre-assess you. Yay. So these are questions variations on questions I might ask my students, but Ariel's going to put some polls up for you to answer. We want to know what kind of art you make and teach and what ages you work with. Hey, it's a poll.
So I'll read the questions. The first one is, what art forms do you practice? And you can check all that apply. Your choices are music, dance, visual arts, theater, literary arts, digital, or media arts. And then the next question is, how does this show up in your practice? Check all that apply: performing, creating, That's composition, choreography, performance art, etc. Creating 2D or 3D visual arts, crafting or textile arts, digital media, improvisation, or directing, and that's conducting, show directing, etc. The third question, what art forms do you teach? Check all that apply: music, dance, visual arts, theater, literary arts, or digital/media arts. And then how does this show up in your teaching? And the same categories: performing, creating in composition choreography way, creating in a visual arts or crafting or textile way, improvisation, or directing. And then the last question is, what ages do you work with? Check all that apply: pre-K, K through 12, 3 to 5, middle school, high school, or adult.
This is exciting. Realized I was sitting here breathing in my head. I can't wait to find out who's in the room. I'll say question number 4, how does this show up in your teaching? Thinking about what it is you're teaching your students to do. Are you teaching them to be performers, creators of performance or visual arts, etc.?
And I think I'll give you a couple more seconds to do some voting.
Next time I'm going to put a cute song in this section.
And now I will close the poll.
Oh, a lot of visual artists in the house. Nice. And 25% of everything else. It's fun, and there must be some multidisciplinary artists because that adds up to more than 100%. A lot of creators, a lot of improvisers too. And then we are in the classroom teaching visual arts overwhelmingly, which makes sense because that's about how many visual artists are in the room, with literary arts coming in a second, close second. Literary arts coming ahead of what we practice. Music, dance, digital media arts, and theater are all within the 10% of one another. So not as many dancers in the room as we have other art forms. Well, actually plenty of dancers, not as many dancers teaching dance, apparently, as other art forms. I love data. And a lot of people teaching creating, which is good because that's what we're working on today, as well as performing, directing, improvisation. I have a lot of roots in improvisation, theatrical improvisation myself. And a lot of high school and middle school educators in the room, which is great because some of the tools I have are better for older students, but I have plenty of K through 2 and 3 through 5 tools as well. And I also have tools that will be exciting for your own practice, I hope, when we get to that part. Hey, thank you for telling me who you are. I appreciate that. Uh-oh, do I have to ask to share the thing again? No, I did it. Okay, so we're going to talk about pre-assessments because there's a lot of ways to use the idea of pre-assessment. And when I was training, I learned that basically a pre-assessment is how you show they don't know it yet, and then the post-assessment is how you show they learned it. And I'm not going to argue that that should never be a function of pre-assessments, but for me, a pre-assessment is about finding out what's already there. So are there students in the room who need special accommodations? That might be physical accommodations, but for me, mostly right now, especially post-pandemic, it's emotional accommodations and learning aids, something that they can have in their hands, a time they're allowed to take a break, a tool that they can use to express their frustration or anger, like a scribble pad. So that's something I'm always looking for when I'm pre-assessing. I'm looking for what my students can tell me about themselves that's going to help me make my content relevant to them, just like I hopefully just did by asking you all who's in the room. If you were all pre-K teachers, I would not spend a lot of time focusing on tools for older students, but you're not all pre-K teachers. And I have this sample student interest form. Let's see if this comes up where it's supposed to be when I click on it. Can we see this? Yay. Okay, now this was used with 8th graders, and honestly, I feel like this is still a little crowded for 8th graders, if you'll forgive me. But this was a puppetry and film application. So the students had been introduced to the topic and the general idea and shown some examples of the types of puppets we would be making. And then this was presented to them as their crew application. This was for their position they wanted on the film crew. So I gave them 4 options with each one of these. Please don't make me do this is one of my options. I have no idea how, but I'm excited to learn. I've done this a few times, or I can do this a little, or I can do this often, and I know how to do this well. And on the left-hand side is a list of things that will need to be done on our production, ranging from drawing and sketching to one of my favorite, cut complex shapes with scissors. You can find a kid who can cut well with scissors, man, that's a treasure. You have that child help you with so many wonderful things. But it also has things like fix something that isn't working right. So that doesn't even imply any arts experience. Something might just be broken and need to be fixed. And then some of these here we've included due to our pre-knowledge because there was already a after-school film program at the school. So we knew there would be some students who know how to operate a boom mic, use a slate, edit video. I probably wouldn't include some of these more detailed questions if my students were most likely to be first-time filmmakers. So that's already using a little bit of pre-assessment from prior to the program to make this sheet. And then, even more importantly to me at the bottom, describe yourself in 3 words. And I don't really give them any guidance on that. I just let them pick 3 words to describe themselves. I ask what they are best at and clarify that it does not need to be arts related. Just they had to describe themselves. What are you best at? And what part of the class they are most excited about. And then I don't know why this went to a second page. Annoying. Which 2 puppets are you most excited to work on? Because we had already walked through which general characters we were going to be working on. So when I get all of this information, it's because I want to boil it down to a very small amount of information. All of this, many questions, is going to let me assign each kid 2 regular tasks. You will regularly be a hand sewer and you're going to work on Humpty Dumpty. You will be the director of our hot glue station. And while you're sitting at the hot glue station, you're also going to work on making 18 mouse puppets that all work from the same pattern. So this, I really do use it like a job application in that I know I have roles that have to be filled on the project. I'm looking for students who are the best fit for each role. And that may be a student with no experience doing it, as long as they're interested and excited in learning that thing. That's where it's different from a job application. They don't have to know it. They just have to want to know it. And then hopefully, now how do I go back to the slideshow from here? Do you know how to do that, Carl? Seems like it should be possible. That's not it.
So yeah, you just have to go to a different, the tab that's right before it, way up at the top.
Oh, I got it now. Okay. Do we need to try and make that full screen again, or is it just there? I think that's fine. Okay, so that's a sample student interest form. This deck will be shared following the presentation. So if you want to be able to follow any of these links, take a look at these things in more detail later. That is a possibility. So I take the information on that in this case, and I took it back to my students. I like word clouds. I was in a word cloud kick when this was going on. So I asked, what are you good at? This is what they said they're good at. I asked, describe yourself, and those are the words they used to describe themselves. So I came back at them and said, okay, y'all are great at dancing, creating, more dancing, dancing with a capital D, dancing. So we're probably going to put some dancing in our piece because everybody in here likes to dance. Break dancing is also in there. and dance and singing. These are two different classes doing the same project, so they showed up in both. And describing themselves was fun to see whether they perceive of themselves as a group of silly people or kind people or funny people. And it's nice to bring their own kind words back to themselves. I like eerie, E-E-R-I-E. One child described themselves as eerie, and someone described themselves as mean. Normally, I don't think I'd put that in. I must have been feeling wild that day. So that's what I'm talking about with pre-assessments as far as this creative development process goes, making sure you understand who is actually taking this class. And an important part of that is learning their names. I bet everybody in this meeting already knows this, but it's really hard to get anyone to do what you want if you don't know their name. And it's really hard when you're a teaching artist and you only have 8 one-hour sessions with a group of 30 children to learn their names. So it's something we make excuses for a lot. This is one I would never make an excuse for, though. You must learn to pronounce the person's name. You might not be able to. You might fail every time you try. They might have to pronounce it for you over and over again. I taught for a couple of years at a school with primarily Chinese students, and my Chinese pronunciation is very bad. So they were still correcting me on my last day, but they were delighted by my efforts, delighted and amused, likely. It doesn't matter. What matters is that they have a name that means something to them, and we're not going to change it or come up with a nickname because we can't pronounce. And shame on anyone who has a background in theater or vocal music who claims they can't pronounce the name of any child. I learned to sing in German without ever knowing a word of German when I was 16. So absolutely, I can learn to pronounce any name that comes my way. And if I've studied dialects and accents, better not say you can't pronounce it. The next concept, what are the participants expecting? And what do you need to add or correct or clarify? What is art? Is a simple question as students, especially younger students. What do we think art is? Because there's a lot of ideas in the room. A lot of them are similar, and most of them have very little to do what we're actually here to teach. I go in to teach dance a lot and run into the preconception that dance is either hip hop or ballet. And there's not a lot of in between in the pre-knowledge that I find in the classroom, aside from the occasional student whose parent is like a professional Latin dance teacher, which has happened to me twice already. And then go from there. Do you need to clarify? Do you need to add to this information? Do you need to correct a misconception? And that saves you time teaching students something they already know about what they're going to do, but it also helps you level set. Here's a great example. Teaching during the pandemic, I had prepared a lesson one day and my 4th graders, I think, came in online, and I said, okay, I need you to cut and paste this link into your browser. And they said, cut? What is paste? Where is browser? What is link? And I said, okay, we are doing a different lesson today. Today we are learning what is link, where is copy and paste. So, if we know right from the beginning that that's where we have to start, it's going to save us a lot of time, and in a lot of cases, materials. And then just validating their thoughts about art. Art's boring. Oh, well, maybe the art you have seen is boring. Maybe I can find some art that's not boring to you, rather than just being like, no, art is fascinating. Because I think it's fascinating. Obviously, I'm the art teacher. Do I have? Okay, I'll put that one in there too. And you are already an artist. A lot of students think of an artist as something that you either are born being, or only certain people can become an artist, or you have to have a lot of skills and training to be an artist. And if you haven't learned to paint, you're not an artist. So letting them see, and this is where we're going next, the little ways in which they already make art in their everyday life is pretty important. Which is often why I will do a name project that involves art for the first day. I know I'm not the first teacher in existence ever to think of this, but it's a way to help me identify them and for them to both share whatever they are, whoever they are as an artist, as well as make sure you know their name. And let's see, was there anything else I wanted to throw in here? Just for me, especially, take a step back when students talk to you about what they think art is, and whether they do or don't like it, and ask yourself, you know, are they right? Have they thought of something I haven't thought of? Maybe I don't know that that's art and they know that it is. And they might be wrong though. You know, you might have to correct them and be like, no, actually, that's not what we're doing here. We will be wearing clothes in this process, you know, stuff like that. Okay. And a simple project that shows them they can do it. So this is one of my first day projects. This was also for puppetry on film. We get an assortment of random upcycled items and some tape. And I asked them to make eyes, and the experiment is to show that pretty much anything can be a puppet if you put eyes on it in the right place. So these are students on their first day of puppetry and film. And that is, what did I do? Hang on. That's the end of that section. So before I go on, I would like to pop into the chat. And I would like you to say, hang on, I wrote down what I want you to say in the chat and I have to look at what I said. Past me made a note for present me about this. I just got to go look at it real quick. I want you to write, oh, something you want to specifically learn about today. Please write in the chat something you want to learn about today. There's a specific thing you came, and if you have more than one thing, just dump them all in the chat. I like the chat. I'm going to go back to it now that I found my question. And the things take cosplay to another level. Okay, Ariel, I see you. Working with various experience levels in the room. Getting students excited and involved when they don't want to do it. One of my tools is randomly singing. I do not know when I'm doing it anymore.
How to get more buy-in from high school students who don't, quote unquote, need this or don't care or are sullen teenagers. Supporting students when they self-criticize. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Robbie definitely upvoted that. How to work with small groups of students, editing and guiding and supporting what is new territory for them. Clarabelle says, improving my teaching artist skills for the younger students with a short amount of time. Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Keep putting those in the chat.
And many of these things will be addressed, so that's terrific. And the few I see that aren't specifically addressed, we can scroll back up through this chat when we get to the question and answer section to catch some of these things that I could give you an answer for that's not already in the presentation. Okay. I'm going to move forward, but you are welcome to continue your thought if you haven't finished typing it in the chat. Molly says how to develop great classroom management skills in the short time we have with students. Yes. Okay, so feel free to add more to that while I click on these slides over here. Chat goes on my chat. All right, so we are talking about the next 20% skill building, project parameters, and design. So this is a little bit of a Montessori type approach. We come in, we introduce a project, and this is the part where we're leaving space for student choice, both in content and topics and division of labor between students. We're filling in knowledge gaps that we discovered in our pre-assessment, and we're teaching technique. Is this where I have my sidebar? Yes, here's my sidebar, technique versus theory. Starting in kindergarten, I have several schools where I teach, but I'm very fortunate to be at one school where I see the students for a full quarter, 5 days a week. And I see them from kindergarten currently through 5th grade. So I get some time to develop their concepts over the years. There's better words for that, but I didn't write them on these slides. I did write this though. We talk about theory and technique starting in kindergarten. So theory is understanding how the art is made, and you don't have to be able to make it to understand it. So I can watch I can watch a dancer do a tour jeté and say that is a tour jeté, or that has a circular pathway that goes to a high level without being able to do a tour jeté. Technique are the practical skills usually learned through repetition and muscle memory that are required to create and perform the artwork. And you can learn technique without understanding the theory behind the art's creation. So obviously they're married together in certain spots. You can't totally divide them from one another. But I think it's very important to make sure that theory is part of what our students are learning if we are at all interested in teaching the creative development process. And that's both understanding the language around theory and understanding how to identify what they're seeing as well as create it. Language of the arts. Wait, I went backwards. I was supposed to go forward. Yep, that's forward. Okay. So when we are in the skill building phase, we are making sure the students know what is available to them. So for example, if I'm teaching puppetry, giant puppets, I like to make giant puppets. So we teach giant puppets, and I did a school, we did Shel Silverstein poems. So at this point, we had generally selected the poems as a class. As a class, we said, okay, we're gonna do these 6 poems for movement because we think these poems will work well expressed with dance. And we're gonna do these 6 poems of giant puppets because there are characters in this that will make good giant puppets. So once we agreed as a class, these are our projects, then the students were allowed to say, this is the project I want to work on. I want to work on the giant dragon. I want to work on the giving tree, etc. So I would like you to drop in the chat some of the ways you give your students agency over the content of the learning, or if I were to make it simpler, what do you let them pick? What do the students get to pick in your classes? Students who think everything is boring when it's not their turn. Reiterating the question, in what ways are you giving students agency over the content of their learning? Or what does the kid get to pick? There are obviously varying degrees of this too. Which materials they're going to use, which art materials they're going to use. Pick music. I think that's a great choice. I often have my students pick music. And it's nice to have many students submit music, and then you can pick the ones that are appropriate for the project and bring them back the top 5 choices for a vote or something like that, so that we're not just using a song one person picked. Lead original songs, that's wonderful. Story content. Order of rehearsal and exercises, oh, that's fun. Okay, great. What music they want to listen to while you're creating, what color theme. I should let my students pick the music more. They get annoyed with me, but I really like instrumental music. And they do add to my playlist as long as they can add instrumental. Which role you want to have? Do you want to be backstage, speaking alone, making things? It's fairly what we do. The writing is theirs and their everyday stories. And just bringing a couple of different projects for them to choose from. Okay, feel free to add more to that as we keep going here. And move the chat out of my way. Hey, I already did that. Oh, while you do that, I'll talk about the tale of Diego. Diego fits the category a lot of you are talking about. So we were doing a pop-up museum, and the school had given us an entire hallway, 2 classrooms, the boys and girls bathroom, the hallway itself, and an extra large science classroom that we divided in half with curtains to make it into 2 spaces. So we had a total, we had 2 classrooms. Each classroom did about 6 installations. So we had about 12 installations in our pop-up museum. We took a trip to Wonder Museum to check out what their pop-up museum is like, see some, I can only remember first name, Yoi, the artist who does the reflective balls. I'll look it up later. So we saw this wonderful art, and we did responses and word clouds of our responses. Diego was not impressed. Diego said this is all boring, and Diego doesn't want to do it because it is boring. So I said, Diego, what is not boring? And Diego said, football is not boring. And I said, okay, Diego, I want you to go back to your group, and this is another advantage to having students work in group, and I want you to tell your group what you like about football. And let's see if we can find a way to have your audience experience what you like about football. So last minute before it was deadline for the project choices, they brought me this one piece of paper that says they throw paper balls, they could throw paper airplanes, they grab paper and they crumble it up and they throw paper everywhere. This was their finished project. We called it our paper airplane obstacle course. And it's made of foam pipe insulation, which I'm going to show you some of later, and gaff tape. And if you don't know this, they make little clips that go around the two sides of those dividers panels in the ceiling. So the ones that look like they're floating are hanging from ceiling clips on fishing line. So I went up to Diego and talked to him at the performance, and I said, "Are you an artist? Did you make some art?" And he said, "Some art." So at least he was willing to tell me he was an artist. I don't know if he would admit it to anyone else. And he might have just been telling me what I want to hear, but he did participate actively and willingly in the creation of this project. This is Diego being a willing participant right here. I have photo proof. I'm not sure his name was Diego. I mostly just make up names for my students so that I'm not, giving away their anonymity. So division of labor, group work is the blessing and the curse of the teaching artist. Having students work in groups can be wonderful, but it is a challenge. And a lot of what we're talking about today is designed to help with that challenge. Division of labor means I can put 4 kids in a group and I can say, only one of you needs to be the writer. And generally out of 4, there's 1 that wants to be the writer and 3 that very much do not want to be the writer. And when there's 2 that want to, I let them have 2 writers. But we go through this with all the positions we need. And I use the positions that we need in a classroom, on whatever the project is. So we usually have a mix of designers, writers, directors, and other creatives, depending on what they're doing. Like we might have choreographers or songwriters on a team. And that lets me walk in the room and say, I need all the directors to come see me right now to pick up your materials. And so there's no time to waste it on everybody getting in a group and standing somebody up to get the materials and 3 children running up to you to get what they need at the same time, what have you. I'm just peeking back at the chat. There's more fun information in the chat. Are we saving the chat for this, Ariel and Courtney? Is there a way to do that? There must be.
Absolutely. Yes, we are.
Good, because there's going to be a lot of good information in that chat. I know. Oh, hey, this is what I just said. But I'm going to go in more detail. I tell my students I am one of 2 things. I either tell them I'm the producer or I'm the director of the project, depending on how old they are. Usually I'm a producer for older students, a director for younger students. The producer provides the resources the artist needs. So that might be space, time, materials, electricity, ventilation. And in the classroom, teaching artists and their organization are the producer. So I have on a lot of my projects a supply request form. Students are given us limited amount of supplies they can request from. They turn into supplies requests. The director, when I'm being the director, there I am. Then the outside eyes of the production means I can see everything and I'm the only one who can see everything because everybody else is in it or looking at something else like the costumes or the lighting. So the director is usually the teaching artist for me up until at least 2nd grade, depending. 2nd graders only get to be directors if they've been training for a couple years. By the time they get to 4th, 5th grade, having a director in the group is a real benefit. And I've had co-directors. 3 directors doesn't work, but 2 directors, especially if they come to you and say, can we share this responsibility, usually works just fine. And then the artist is supposed to create the art. They request resources, they expect and accept feedback, and they have to meet the show's requirements for their work to be included. So you can make something really cool, but if it's not in the parameters of this show, we're not going to put it in. And that is obviously a very flexible set of parameters because you're the director and teaching artist. But setting up this expectation of them as artists at the beginning means that they're going to know they'll be getting feedback. and that there are boundaries they have to stay within to get to share their artwork, which helps me a lot when we come to questions of, can I say this word? Can I use this weapon, you know, and say, well, who's your audience? Okay, that's your audience. Is that an appropriate choice for this audience? No? Yeah, because they're kindergartners, and that's an axe that you're trying to attack somebody with, so put it down. Okay, so I said that already. How can students use their strengths to contribute to the group? So this was a group of boys I had at a school where we were making, the school was doing The Lion King. My class was creating choreography elements, like different steps and phrases that we were handing off to the director for choreography, and we were creating costumes. So this is our bird costume design here. I created this costume design because I had 4 boys in the class who have what I call destructive energy, not like aggressive, just like everything they touched would slowly fall apart. They would pick the edges of things and scratch into things, and not even really realize they were doing it until they got called out on it. So their job was to rip paper into squares, and we made 20 of these costumes. So they ripped paper and ripped paper and ripped paper and ripped paper for days. And they were quite satisfied. They could sit there and talk to each other while they ripped paper. As long as they stayed on task, they were able to, you know, kind of chill out. And then I had other students who were passionately stapling and using markers to color the edges of the feathers, not seen here, and putting all the details on. And these are 2 in progress pieces right here. So that was another example. And that school, I was dealing with 5th graders who had no prior experience. So we did the division of labor across the class as a whole. So we had this group of boys who did ripping little squares, but we also had a group of students whose job it was just to make and staple the beaks on the hats. We had another group whose job it was, of very meticulous students whose job it was to staple the feathers on. So in a classroom of about 30, I had 6 groups not doing their own projects, but 6 groups with each a different task in the assembly line of making our various costume pieces. We'd made 2 or 3 so that they could be in different parts of the assembly line on different types of costumes. Filling in knowledge gaps. What did I put here? Including your own. Right? So we get into this 20% here. Oh, we know who's in the classroom. We have some rough idea of who they are. Now, how do we find out what we need to know to relate to them better? Which could be, I know a lot of us have students recommend songs to us. I do that a lot. Or what's your favorite movie? When I'm teaching theater, I need to know what their favorite TV shows are, or YouTubers at this point, so that I can make correlations between character archetypes and what they watch. Nothing worse than mentioning a show that is clearly 3 years out of date and nobody watches anymore, and all the 4th graders are like, who watches that? Oh no, I have to go look at Disney Plus again and see what tween comedy is. Obviously we're also filling in our students' knowledge gaps here, but I think that's something we already know to do, and I don't always remember to fill in my own knowledge gaps while I'm preparing for what my students need to know. And then teaching technique, which for some people is the core of their program. If I'm teaching classical ballet, teaching technique needs to be in the core of my program, not necessarily the sole core. If I'm teaching violin, I can't launch into teaching composition without teaching some technique. So the question for most artists is, how much of this needs to be technique? How much of this can be theory? And how can I make those 2 things connect for these students, so that while they're learning the technique, they're also understanding where this is coming from and where it will eventually be going. Because I think a lot of students get bored. My students get bored doing foot articulation until we do jumps. So we have to show them some solid video of jumps at the beginning of working on foot articulation, so they know eventually this is going to let them get closer to the basket if they can be patient. And also having adjustments and adaptive tools for teaching technique. So if I teach dance, I should know what I can do with students who are not on level with physical self-control, which hopefully involves the school being a support to you in some way. Are there, like, I teach in a cafeteria. That happens sometimes. And it's actually a very nice cafeteria, and I can paint the floor so that I have little flowers on the floor with numbers for my students to sit on, and I paint vines to be their pathways for coming across the floor, but it's a cafeteria and the floor is gross. So I have to bring in little pads that they can lay down on the floor on. And then they don't feel so bad when they have to lay down on the floor, right? This is not accessibility is not just about people who have disabilities to overcome. It's also about making sure a space that is not easily accessible can be made accessible to anybody, average everyday human. And then keep current on the adaptive tools in your art form, right? It was a long time in American history before they started making left-handed scissors. It's just a little thing. And now, of course, most scissors are both-handed, but keep an eye out on whatever resources your discipline uses. Find the resources, the newsletters for adaptive tools for your discipline. Take the workshops. So many good ones. So here's some of my favorite phrases for adaptive learning. Watching is learning. I have a couple students right now who are not very functional in my classroom. They shut down. So as long as they are watching, they are succeeding. And generally that leads to some level of participation. Both of my students in this case are now participating. They're kindergartners who came out of the pandemic without really much social education. So they've gone from sitting to doing, and they're not doing what everybody else is doing yet, but it doesn't matter because they are moving forward in their own set of goals. I let my students use fidgets. I don't know about y'all, but I walk around the classroom with a marker in my hand, whether or not I'm writing on anything. So if I'm allowed to have a fidget, they should be allowed to have a fidget. So instead of saying no, I just have a set of rules for fidgets. I have places they can put them down when we're dancing. I have consequences for if the fidgets are not where they're supposed to be or being used inappropriately, but it really helps some of my students to be allowed to have one in their pocket. And I'm usually teaching movement, so this is not a sedentary class. Alternate listening positions is a pretty simple one, but my students sit on the floor, so they sit crisscross applesauce, but some of them can't. Some of their bodies are not made that way. So we have a couple of options for what we call audience seating, being in your audience body. They can sit with their legs straight out, so they can lean back on their hands if they need to. They can sit side saddle with their knees tucked to the side. And we practice those at the beginning of each beginning of each year. We review those positions. And likewise, we have neutral as a standing listening position, but depending on my group of students, I might need to have other options for when they have to stand and listen. And having your own pairs of noise canceling headphones around is not a bad idea if you teach music or dance or anything that's going to have loud audio. I have a student this year who we couldn't figure out why he would just fall asleep right in the middle of class, like from standing up dancing to asleep on the floor. And finally we discovered that his response to loud sounds is a total shutdown. So he's got noise canceling headphones, and now he makes it most of the way through class before he falls asleep. Progress. Communication is really going to be important if you are creating new work. If you can't communicate with your groups, everything will fall apart and be a hot mess. So this is both about inclusion and accessibility, because if students don't have it in writing as well as hearing it from you, again, the second they walk away from you, everything is going to go kaboot. One student will keep working on the wrong thing, and the rest of them will just gaze into space. So this is what I use mid-project. Oh no, this is the cover story or cover sheet. That's why I put it here. Okay, so I would get this right at the end of this 20%. The name of their group, in this case, it's the title of a fairy tale. Who's in your group? What are the characters in your story? I don't ask them yet to say who's playing which character, although they insist on doing it anyway, and then changing it 19 times. And then what's the character? Pinocchio. What type of puppet will this be? Marionette. The character is Crocodile, and it's going to be a giant cardboard box puppet. So this is just this goes in their clear folder that I use with my classes. I have my clear folder sitting here. These are wonderful for design work. I don't know if people can see me, but I'm going to talk about them some more later. So I tuck it in their clear folder, and that tells me what the project is, what they're supposed to be making. They update it if they need to as we work. Okay, I remember how to do this now. And I'm going to show you more of the communication systems that I use with my older students and their project work as I go on. With younger students, I would basically be filling out that information for them because we would have worked it out in class, or they would have turned in a preference form, and then I would have assigned their roles based on their preferences, which works out surprisingly well. If you give your students their top 3 choices and promise you'll give them one of their top 3, I've almost never had a situation where I couldn't give them one of their top 3 choices for the project they want to work on. Okay. Oh, and then this is another thing. Clear communication, and I'm talking specifically about arts classes that are not focused on developing spelling and literacy. Clear communication is more important than correct communication, or I'm talking about the relief you see in students' eyes when you say spelling doesn't count, when you take away the pressure of them having to meet certain academic standards for the sake of the creative development process. And this all goes back to giving our students the same permissions we give ourselves. I don't take notes with perfect spelling when I'm working on a project. I have a sheet with like all kinds of half words scribbled on it and arrows pointing to illustrations. I don't write in full sentences, and I don't concern myself with finishing words. I abbreviate all the time. So I allow my students to work that way. And then I give them certain situations like that cover sheet where they have to summarize everything they've been scribbling. Even then, I'm not very picky about spelling though. I'd like to show students how the word technique is spelled and how there's no K's in it. And none of the things that sound like a K are the same as each other. I am wrapping up the skill building and project parameters section here, and we're about to move into hands-on making, the actual making stuff. And that's the next few sections are not actually super long in this presentation, even though they are the longest parts of the process, because for me, the real important work happens in this first 30%. You get them or you lose them. And this first 30% to the point where I would recommend, if you get to here, you're about to start the making process and you don't have them, I would reboot and go back to the beginning and figure out what we can do that's going to work. Because there's no point in pushing students forward with a project that they're not excited about or interested in. So if you have any questions about that last section, feel free to drop them in the chat. Eleanor also mentioned designing their own fused glass tiles and pendants and designing colors, patterns. I got to take the glass slumping class. I made myself a trivet that I'm still using in my kitchen. Okay, I don't see any urgent questions popping up. I'm gonna go forward, but don't wait. If you wanna ask the question, drop it in the chat at any time. Talk about this middle chunk. So this, for most of us, is where the real work is happening, where we're really teaching students the core skills they're going to need for whatever the presentation and performance event is at the end. This is where they're actually making their main piece of art. It's going to be hands-on, and then we're going to have what I call continued targeted skill building and performance and event planning happening between the various adult stakeholders, making sure the space is going to be available on the right day and time, making sure we're going to have everything we need. And now a demonstration of a bunch of things. So I am going to show you an interdisciplinary project, and hopefully the music will not play too loud, because this, I am sorry if you have audio processing issues, you're going to hear the video and me talking at the same time. But the things I'm saying will also be scrolling across the bottom of the video in text, if that helps you. So this was a pandemic project, and these are second graders. We were doing an online performing arts unit. So we decided to make a U-Noodle video based on the many Go Noodle videos everybody was doing during the pandemic. So these students, we worked together as a class to pick our themes. This class chose underwater and sky. So there's another section for sky. And they also decided what the obstacles were going to be in each of those sections. So you're looking at a whirlpool right now. And then they decided through class conversation and voting what the order of obstacles would be. Sometimes I let a student pick what's next. Sometimes we would let the class vote on what's next. Then the students would decide what was their physical response going to be to each of those obstacles. Are we going to duck, jump, spin, jump, spin? Then the students illustrated the obstacles and we showed them how they had to leave a blank background if they wanted it to be in the video. Students did all of these voiceover recordings. I think I'm one of the few teachers who was happy during the pandemic because all my students had video cameras. And all my second graders took their own videos for this project. They did their own costuming.
Swim under.
They practiced all the moves in order. And I made the framework here with all of their artwork, and they watched the framework while they did the moves. They also choreographed their own victory dances. This is Solomon's victory dance. And then they needed a volcano to blast them up into the sky. And I picked Solomon's video because his cape splits into wings. What? So that he can fly through the sky. And we did one to the side, and we did one moving towards the camera so they could practice those two different angles. So that is one of the most interdisciplinary integrated projects I've done recently. But that's also a good example of how students as young as second grade can have an enormous amount of choice in their project while still being given a framework in which to work. And I don't recommend doing that project unless it's a pandemic and you don't have any travel time, so you can spend that time editing videos. Or you have older kids that want to edit the videos. So while my students are working, they will get a sheet like this. And so I will usually have 6 groups in a classroom. That might vary to like 7 or 8, depending on the students and whether I have some students who need a smaller group to be successful. So I will have them fill one of these out. This is not every single class. This is just for this section in the middle where they're doing their project work. And we will walk into the class and we'll hand them, let me see if I can zoom in. I don't know how to zoom in on this. Sorry, it is kind of tiny. I'll hand them their sheet. They go sit down with it. They're not allowed to have any supplies until they fill in those blanks. Yes.
Emily, if you want to zoom in, there's a little
oh, hey, I see
little
it.
thing at the bottom. Yep.
But when I click it, it does nothing. Oh, it does everything quickly. Okay. So I have questions they need to answer for me. Do you want to mask for the goat? Yes or no? I need this sketch for the night. I don't have anything. What's he wearing on his head? But this is what's really important to me. Who's the artist that's going to work on this today? They fill in those blanks at the beginning of class. Who's making the goat horns today? Who's working on the fox head today? Who's working on the gingerbread man today? Are they going to accomplish everything on their list? They are not. I usually try to have 2 days worth of work on their list so they can see what's coming up, so they can see what the next steps will be. So when this group gets their next, what do you call this, work order sheet, I will be bumping this stuff up from the bottom and taking off anything they accomplished. And then they have their little end of class report here where they tell me what they managed to do, which is also very helpful because it really helps me catch the students who are falling through the gaps and not getting anything done. And then I'll just have a section for other notes at the bottom, and that's usually used to request additional supplies or let me know that like something is missing or broken or they need another whatever. These do take time. This kind of project takes prep time, but having the students in only 6 groups helps because I'm only doing 6 of these. I'm not doing 1 per student. Yay! What's next? I'm clicking the buttons. There it goes. All right, so in the middle of this 30% here, so we've started making what I want to add this little piece. What we will do is come in and say, okay, 5 groups need to make a mouse for their puppet. So I need each of these groups to send 2 people over here for the puppet mouse making workshop. Okay, now they can all take their puppet mouse back to their groups. And then these other students, they all need to glue foam. So we're going to come over here and we're going to go over the foam gluing station, what the rules are for gluing foam, how to make things not fall apart, how long you need to wait for it to cool. And we usually do 2 or 3. Yes, what Ariel said is correct there. And there's links, and I made a special folder that's got public access for those documents too. I usually have 2 or 3 of those mini lessons per class when we are in the middle of a work project like this. And having those work order forms come in helps me know, okay, I have 3 groups now that are ready to cover their puppets with fabric. So this is a day to do a fabric covering demo. So halfway through this time, we have a check-in point where we and our students sit down and say, okay, how's it going? Are we still having the same goals? Do we still want to make all these puppets? Do we really need all these puppets? Could one of these puppets just be cut out of paper? Could this be played by a human? Could this entire costume be replaced with a hat? Right? This is the kind of decisions we start to make. And what I am doing here is giving students the same permission we give ourselves. Let them change their minds. Let them start making something and decide that it's not good and they don't want to do it anymore and start over. They'll have a smaller project, they'll have a simpler project, but they'll have a project they're happy with. I mean, some students and some artists will never get to a project they're happy with because art, but it does give the students a chance to change their mind while we still have a long amount of class to go before performance day. And I usually have 1 or 2 students who need to just reboot at this point. One more thing I'm going to say about this section here. Hang on, it was very important. What was it? Oh, back in the 20% here, when I'm setting up project parameters for a project that's going to have a lot of crafting or building, I will usually give them both a supply list. It's like, these are the supplies you're going to be allowed to choose from. And I will usually give them show them a slide deck of mechanisms. So here are 5 things we can give you a pattern for. We can give you a pattern for wings that open and close. We can give you a pattern for a marionette body made out of foam. We can give you a pattern for a round-headed anything Muppet type puppet. So a lot of times when we wrap up this 20%, the students are also saying, okay, here's the 3 mechanisms we're going to use in our project. And then we know we only need to be prepared to teach those mechanisms going forward. And hopefully I'll come back to talking about that again a little bit further on in the project. But making sure they know what skills they will have access to learning and what materials they will have access to, if that applies. When you're in this part, helps this part go smoothly so that they're not asking you for things that you're not there to teach. I usually have some kind of list they can check boxes on to make life easy. And when possible, I have pictures on that list. And I don't have an example of that here because so many documents and then our brains explode. But if you want to know more about this, I'm sure, is my contact information shared at the end of this, Ariel?
Yes.
Okay. I guess if I want it to be. Okay.
Correct, if you want it.
Yes, we can send my email out so people can email me follow-up questions if they want to. So at this point, I expect the project to be ready to go in rough draft form. So if we're doing math, which I like to do, we are 60% of the way through this process and we have a rough draft. And there should be no new material after that 60% point. And that is the absolute hardest thing for me as a teaching artist to do, to say, okay, we're 60% of the way through. I know it seems like we have a lot of time left, but we're not adding any new ideas. We're going to spend the rest of the time taking the ideas we decided are our best ideas and getting them ready to go in front of an audience of some kind. So that brings us to the tech phase, right? If you're in theater, dance, instrumental music, tech rehearsal time. If you're in the visual arts, gallery installation time, getting set up for whatever kind of reception or gala presentation you want to do for your students. I'm sorry, my arrows are not doing anything. Okay, so accessibility. Is the safe space, is the space we are going to be in safe, and is it available? I remember early on when Ingenuity was doing quality work, we were asking people, what do they need to be successful in their art? And somebody said, a stage without holes in it. So, you know, that's what we're doing here. We're making sure that nobody has stored all the sports equipment on the stage, or if they have, somebody's ready to take it off. That if we're going to put up panels in the hallway, the janitor knows the panels are going up and why, and is expecting them to be there. We're making sure that the support staff we need for that event is going to be there and knows what's going on, where to direct people, where the students are and are not supposed to be. And you want to have secure storage sorted. It gets late at night, I get alliterative. So we want to know, if I'm leaving my props and costumes here, where are they going to be? How is it going to be kept secure so that the students don't go in during their other daytime just to show off their hat to somebody and have it go wandering out into the world? This is also time for recording. And if you're doing a film program, you would have been recording already in that previous 30%. But for me, when I'm doing just a like, here is some recording of the dance we created, that's where this would go. A lot of my final presentations are still online, even though we're back in person in the class. Put in the chat, what is your technical must-have for a successful performance or event? Do you need excellent music, good mics, a certain kind of flooring, lighting, music stands? And that's something somebody who does not run a music program will not think of unless you tell them. They know it's there in pictures of musicians, but they don't think, oh, musicians are coming, we need one music stand for each of them. What else do you need in your classroom? I can't see my chat, there we go. Okay. Attendance, that is the truth. Good snacks, support staff, and people willing to reach out to the community and invite them to join. A double men to support staff. I have learned to throw as many staff as I can afford to throw at every final event that we have. Even if it's just somebody who's in our organization and knows our policies, who can stand by the door and be like, welcome, the performance is over there. Because that way I have another adult who can help if, for example, a kid has a panic attack, which I would say happens about once or twice a year with the number of student performances I do. I have some student have a meltdown right before a show, and it's great to have somebody else in my staff there who can just sit with that kid until they're ready to go. Feel free to continue to add things you need. Also, thank you, Kelly, for mentioning good snacks, because people like to eat food, and it's important that people in your audience not have low blood sugar. Okay. Halfway through this is our last check-in, and this is where we reach out to whoever we're working with at the school and say, okay, we all know the performance is this day, right? We all know the invitation is going to parents via email, and their teacher is sending it, and we have all of that information ready to go, because that makes sure you still have a good quarter of your program left after that meeting, in case somebody went, oh, we double booked the auditorium that day. Oh, we forgot the entire sound system is being replaced that week. You know, oh, the basement flooded and half of everything that we have been using to hang our supplies in the past got ruined. And we just remembered to tell you. At least you're finding out at the 25% mark and not at the end right before you're supposed to go on stage. And that's why I want a tech period, even if all you're doing is having your students in class record a short script they wrote. It's okay to cut something that's not working. Don't force children to struggle through things that are not working for them. Sometimes I make choreography easier, but it's important to let my students know it's not your fault. we're making this easier. It's not bad or wrong. We're making it something we can all do so it will look good. And we're improving your performance, not punishing you. Oh, look, I even wrote that down. Cuts are process, not punishment. And that's a really important thing to establish early on and to repeat often. So students know that if something's not in the show, they're not punished. And I bet my next thing says, the audience won't miss what they weren't expecting. That's not what I thought it was going to say, but that's a good point. That's for me as the director. I get sad when I have to cut something that was going to be really cool. The audience doesn't know what's going to be in there. I'm the only one who's going to be sad about it. And the art continues to exist even if it isn't shared. That's the one that's what I thought was going to be next. That's the one I really hit with my students. Yeah, it's not in this show, but that doesn't mean it can't be in a different show. That doesn't mean you can't put on your own show with it. That doesn't mean you can't share it with your own audience and friends. It's just not in this show. It's still good art. It's still in the world. All right, so coming out of tech, bumping over into, let me make sure I know. Yes, good, I'm on time. I know what slide this is. Is it doing anything? Slide, there we go. Supposed to play music now. There we go. This is the part of every show where people fall asleep. It's the 2/3 point. We are 2/3 of the way through the workshop. This song is 2 minutes long. You have a 2-minute break to get up and walk around, drink some water, dance, whatever you want. Song is, I meant to write down the song credits on here. Song is Golden Swagger by Big Heavy Horn Riffs. It was recommended to me by one of my students. You can draw or write. You can lie down on the ground. Something I often suggested to my students during online learning, during a break. Try laying down on the ground, it's nice. I got myself a beverage. Gets the breakdown, you've got about a minute left. That means it's almost done. When you think it's done and it's not, that's when it's almost done. Yay! Okay, I put this in here because we are 2/3 of the way through this workshop, but also because the audience, oh no, it started again. That was very exciting. The audience checks out at the 2/3 point of anything, not just in a workshop, in a performance, in an event. You get a slump around the 2/3 part, which is why we have usually a big musical theater full group number at around 2/3 of the way through a giant musical theater production, because they know the audience is starting to fall asleep halfway through the second act. They put a big, huge, loud, flashy kick line number there to wake the audience up. So I try to do that with my classes as well, because the 2/3 point is when their eyes start to glaze over. I try to have something to shake things up in there. All right, finishing up this first half of our workshop, I'm going to talk about the event or show, to which I've ascribed a random 5%. And what I'm going to talk about, since honestly the event and show is what most of us specialize in and why most of us got into these fields, I'm going to talk about accessibility. Hopefully my slide will click and I will do that. Oh, keep it short. Seriously. Keep it short. Make them short. I'm going to say it again in a minute, so I'm not going to dwell on it now, but please make your final performances, events, etc., a reasonable length. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a showcase where they were like, we gave every group 10 minutes. And I'm like, there are 20 groups. Have you done the math? We're going to be here for 4 hours watching performances back to back. I'm not sure I did that math right, but you get the idea. So inclusion, try to find a way to incorporate each student's best work. Okay, we don't need all the work, only the very absolute best work. And that's according to the student. Let them say which of their work is their best work. I don't always agree with my students on which of their work is their best, but when it comes down to it, they're the artists. Now, if I don't think their work is appropriate, that's where we go back to the expectations we set up at the beginning and say, this doesn't fit the qualifications for this show. But if it's just not your favorite and it is their favorite, then that should be their best work. And then I'm going to talk about accessibility, because we think a lot about accessibility for our students, but we also need to remember accessibility for the audience that we're inviting to see them. And we don't always have a lot of say over it, but access to the space, of course, that's the first place we all go. Are there ramps? Are there elevators? Can people with mobility issues get into and out of this event? And if not, what are we doing instead? Are we projecting it someplace else that they can get to so that there's still a way for them to see it? Interpretation. Does this event need an interpreter of some kind? Many schools in this city would benefit from having interpreters at events. Or do you just need to have printed interpretation of some of what you're doing in the program so that the audience better understands what's happening? Aisles and intermission. My aunt is the one who always reminded me that old people need to sit on the aisle and they have to be able to get to the bathroom quickly. So if I had any kind of setup that did not have appropriate aisles and appropriate time during the show for people to take a restroom break, I was going to hear about it. So I wouldn't make, if possible, I try not to make my audience sit still longer than a half an hour without a break, because also the audience for youth shows often includes a lot of very small people who get very wiggly. Don't forget to put a big musical number halfway through the second act, or, fireworks or something. All right, so we're not done. Even though we did the show, we still have to do this part that we often don't get enough time to do. Review, reflect, celebrate. Have a viewing party if we can. Even if we had a gallery reception, we may have images of our audience enjoying the gallery. We may just have pictures of the event itself and how things were set up to look at. We may be returning the artwork to the artists. This is also where we are doing our post-assessments. And again, I am thinking about this as something the student does for themselves. So what the student really is doing is thinking about where they are versus where they started. So this is my standard 6-question post-assessment. I use this for pretty much everything. So the student's name is optional. They don't have to include it. I think that's extremely important. They can, some of them really like to. And I usually put the program name in myself, so I know what classroom it is. But sometimes I'll leave that for the students to fill in. The questions are, describe this program in 3 words. I don't give them any guidance on that. Sometimes I get, it was fun. But usually I just get a random assortment of adjectives that they think describe the class. I ask what they remember most from the program, just broadly. And then I ask them to tell me 2 new concepts and 2 new skills. 2nd grade and under, I usually just make this one question about 2 new things you learned. But with older students, again, we're talking about theory versus technique. What's a new idea, thing you didn't know existed? Like I've had students put that they didn't know modern dance was so old. So that's a concept they learned. Skills would be however many ways my students think you can spell plie. Apparently a lot of them think it starts with a C, which is what happens when you teach with a mask on. So skills would be, of course, the technical things that they learned how to do. And that could be something that is more of a conceptual skill too, like learning how to make a beginning, middle, and end in a story. Then I ask the students what I should do differently next time, and if they have anything else to add. And I get some really fun answers, and do you have anything else to add too? And if they finish early, they can draw me a picture on the back, in case you wonder what you should do with the ones who finish early. So that's another one that this link is embedded in the presentation. I made sure that that's a public document. It's a nice one to start with as a post-assessment, and then build out from there on the specific questions you need to ask for your discipline. Now, I do also do our own post-assessment, but for me, I consider the student's product to be the bulk of their post-assessment, because it demonstrates that they used all of the steps of the process that we needed to get to a final product. So we don't necessarily do a separate post-assessment, but for my classes that have regular routines, like warm-ups, we do a first day and last day side-by-side recording of the warm-ups. And then we do a general class-wide evaluation. This class as a whole improved on their understanding of energy. This class as a whole improved their ability to do pliés. And we use that to plan our programming for the next year. Hey, look, I put a little shiny thing behind that. And I think I just said that, but it's about students evaluating their own success, reaching goals they set. Oops. Last thoughts. I'm going to open this up for some comments from you. Hey, I'm running on schedule. But this is something I couldn't find a place to put in this part of the demonstration, but I use this with a lot of students and professional projects. I will ask the student early on, or the group, to come up with 3 words that describe the feel, the aesthetic, the tone, depending on what we're working on of their projects. So maybe they want it to be dark and creepy and spooky, or maybe they want it to be bubbly and fun and excited. And I have them write those 3 words pretty big someplace attached to their project supplies, so that when they have a question, we go back to those 3 words. If they say, hey, Miss Emily, should I use this material or this material? I'll say, look at your 3 words. Which material fits your 3 words better? And that almost always, oh, thank you, Ariel. That almost always results in them making the decision faster and easier than if they're just trying to make a decision cold. 45 minutes, good. Okay, great. Do you have any last questions or thoughts that came up while you were hearing all these various things that you'd like to drop in the chat? Especially if you have, as we were going through this, you're like, oh, I have a thing I do like that. That's really great. If you want to drop any of those in the chat. My students love this name project. And my students make monograms sometimes for themselves. Okay, I'm gonna wait one more second to see if anybody has any questions or anything in the chat. Also, I think he's not showing me the chat, so find it. Okay. If I see something come up in the chat, I will pause and answer that, or we'll go over it at the end. So we're about to switch gears in a way that will make the tires leave rubber on the pavement. We're going to go to a totally different set of concepts right now, which is why I really do want to know if you have any questions on that creative development timeline or thoughts to share now or at the end. But this part is where I'm just going to show you some of the actual physical tools I use to make these things. And I'm not going to lie, I did not 100% finish designing all of the slides in this section. So at a certain point, they're going to get really boring. But those are also the parts where I have a lot of actual practical demonstrations to show you. And I didn't want to leave any of these tools out, because if you just know the name of some of them, it can be useful. There are also some links in this part. And I am developing this section out into its own workshop, which will, oh, why did I do that? Nope. I'm developing this out into its own workshop where there are links and price points for all of the items in this section. So some definitions before I start. Supplies are anything tangible that you can put your hands on that you use in a program, which could include tools and equipment, like things you purchase and reuse, like scissors, green screen, boombox, mic stands, music stands, things that are going to be part of the program for at least several sessions before they get worn out. And then materials are the supplies you purchase and use up, like glue, sheet music, stage makeup, cardboard, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes you don't purchase it. Sometimes you just get it donated. Yay. And then resources are the intangible things, your size of your classroom, the acoustics, the flooring, the storage space, support personnel, anything else that is a resource your program has access to falls into that category, right? The light coming in the windows is a resource. And then I'm using the word program for a thing you teach, like a class, residency, workshop, camp, because that's the best one I have that encompasses them all. Oop. So building materials. Oh, and Ariel, I'll warn you, I'm going to be popping back and forth between live demo and the slideshow fairly often here. So here's some basic concepts, and I'm talking here mostly about big projects, wanting to put together things that have visual impact and are physically large, but also some of these are really great for tiny projects. So I suggest you either make small things out of very high quality supplies, or you make big things out of low cost supplies held together by high quality supplies, and invest in quality tools. Take the time to teach their proper use. Take the time to teach their proper use, or somebody will get injured. That's what children do. Okay, so let's start with cardboard. Just play this little video. This is a program I did last year. We made pop-up books that were 6 feet tall by 8 feet wide. So you're seeing the actualization of the model they did. So this is corrugated cardboard. That's the stuff with the little wavy lines, double layered or thicker. And a lot of the cutting tools and joining tools I'm going to show you today are for working with corrugated cardboard. I'll just watch this last little bit here. Oh, so cute. Okay. That's enough of that. There's more, but you get the idea. We made big things out of cardboard. Corrugated cardboard is what you need if it's going to be a big thing. I think most people know what I'm talking about, but oh, here's the piece. I'm gonna hold this up to my camera. If it has the little zigzaggies in the side, then it is corrugated cardboard, and it will be pretty strong. They sell corrugated cardboard that can hold a full-grown adult standing on it. Comes in all thicknesses. My vendor for cardboard, unfortunately, until like last week, has been Uline, and now I know more about Uline's politics. So I am looking for a good local Chicago cardboard vendor who sells cardboard packing sheets like the one in this video. If you know one, please drop it in the chat, because I don't want to use Uline anymore. But large sheets of cardboard that are white on one side are something you can buy. So it's just something to know. They're not inexpensive, but they are not prohibitively expensive either. They run somewhere, when you're buying them in bulk, around $2 a sheet, which for a project of this size can get pricey. But it's still a nice size for a small amount of money. And I want to say something else about corrugated cardboard. Oh, it's easy to get for free. Hey, wait. I put bullet points in this slideshow, didn't I? It's 30. It's durable-ish. It is sometimes free, but not always. And it is light-ish weight, but a lot of cardboard gets heavy fast. Okay. Thank you for that nice video. I'm moving on now. Okay. So, and then there's single-ply cardboard, which I actually did this, grabbed this and made this right before. I'm holding something up to my camera now. This is what I would use for a hat base if I needed to make a hat, is single-ply cardboard. That's the bendy, flexible stuff. Oh, wait, I have bullet points. Lightweight, very light. It is pretty durable. I mean, you can rip it with your hands if you try, but it holds up well. And it's usually free. You can find this stuff inside a lot of places. I think almost all the cardboard I have like this. Like this is the thickness of a cereal box. This is the thickness of a soda can box. In fact, this hat is specifically made out of orange Sunkist soda boxes because it already had this curve right here and right here built in with the handles, so it made it easy. So if I make a circle out of this and staple it and cover it with fabric, it's a very easy way to make a hat of any height or size. It's very easy to add stuff onto that. Find hats to be a very easy way to have children become a character. Bendable. It's bendable. Foam is what I'm going to talk about next. And hey, like I said, I'm not good at talking to an empty room. So feel free to use those reacts to do like thumbs up or thumbs down if you've worked with some of these things and you have some idea of what they're like. I'm going to talk through multiple types of foam because this is the item I build with more than any other. I love EVA craft foam. It is not inexpensive. It is, however, very valuable and very durable. So I'm going to grab a thick sheet and a thin sheet and bring them over. Thick, the thick sheet of orange EVA foam. And in the picture that you're looking at on your screen, the backing of those superhero logos there is made from this thicker foam. This stuff can take a lot of abuse. It's not easy to rip. It is easy to bend. It can be shaped with heat, but I don't usually bother with that with youth. So this I will use as the background for something. And then adhesive foamy, this is the thinner stuff. It's measured in millimeters. So this is 5 millimeter versus 2 millimeter. And those are two of the more common thicknesses they come in. Don't get 1 millimeter, it's trash. This stuff is very bendy, but the adhesive on it is great for sticking to other foam. So the project on the screen you're seeing, that's a superhero logo design project that my second graders do. They create superheroes, they design logos for them, and then they make those logos physical by layering foam. And my big focus is it safe for the kids? Are they going to hurt themselves with it? And is it going to make a big mess? And this is one of the lower mess ways I have found to let students make something that looks really polished in the end. I'm not covering things like paint today because I assume if you work with paint, you know how to work with paint, and I am bad at it. This is the other kind of foam I use a ton. These are insulation foam sheets. I have one behind me here. Gosh, I hope y'all can see me in your things. This is inch thick. That's the thickness I use, but it comes in other thicknesses. I think it's called pink stuff. What's it say on it? Oh, foamular. Foamular. There's for people in the recording. Foamular. It's easy to cut with a heat knife, which I'm not going to demo today because it's not a good indoor tool or a good tool for children. But a heat knife cuts through this stuff like butter. A heat knife is very inexpensive. It's like $15. So if you want cool shapes and not just squares, like is shown in the picture, it is possible for an adult parent volunteer or a responsible teenager to cut this stuff into fabulous shapes with a heat knife. And also seen on the screen here, this is a set built by, I did the taping. I used gaffer's tape to hold the foam together. The production, Madagascar Junior here, was designed by the students. We did grades grades 1 through 8 participated, and each grade level was a different ensemble and designed a different element. So I want to say the 6th graders did the design of the enclosures here, and they created a different texture for each animal. So we've got our zebra, giraffe, lion, and hippo. And these fold flat to be stored backstage. They can be lifted and carried by anyone tall enough to lift and carry them because they're extremely light. And the other thing I will do with these is just take a 4x8 panel and stick 2 handles on the back, tape the front to be a flat, and have a child stand on stage and hold it rather than try to brace it or have it held up by its own legs. And I have found that children really enjoy standing on stage behind a piece of set and holding it there. And generally my productions are so short that no child is standing behind a piece of scenery for more than 2 minutes. So that's something I suggest if you like to work with foamular. It's great for making set pieces that you can just carry on and off under your arm, and you don't have to worry about heavy wheels rolling over somebody's toes or finding enough backstage space for your flats. What's this? Oh, here's foamular in action. This is
okay, here we go.
Ready? And
all held together with tape.
Hats too. Okay, So use your
If you're
hands.
familiar
and you have
with
to hit it at the
Madagascar.
top. Jana, go ahead and pop the front down. And then you all hop out going, hey, go ahead, do it. You can step on it even if you have to.
Yes, everything about this is amazing.
If they have
Okay,
to
so
across the stage.
so this thing folded flat. It is held together with magnetic snaps, and the front is popped on with magnetic snaps, which is why they're able to kick it down from the inside. And it's sturdy enough that a kid can crawl across it or walk across it without totally destroying it. You can hurt it walking on it, but for my penguins to come out and roll across it is not going to destroy this set piece. And it takes paint very well.
It's gonna make me happy.
This
Okay,
is not
you got it.
painted yet.
Ready?
Yeah. Okay. Then the third kind of foam that I use all the time, and I have a whole bunch of samples sitting here with me. I'm going to be showing you these materials more as I cut them apart in just a second. Closed cell polyethylene foam. It is the stuff that is packing material a lot of times in boxes, and it's called closed cell because this is all not a smooth surface, but a continuous surface. There's no gaps in the surface. From the side, bring out a white piece. You can see the cells, the little gaps. It's super light. It's very flexible. It's very durable. And if you're worried about how would I cut this, I will show you in just a minute. This is a example of a puppet that we made, but the student created all the shapes. I gave them the direction that they needed a certain number of layers, and I gave them some visual reference. This was a 7th grader, and they created, cut out, and layered all the shapes. And then I helped them with the directionality of the fur to make sure that the fur wouldn't all be going in weird directions. And they did all of the gluing and attaching and built these eyelids that are functional eyelids. Very durable, lightweight, easy to cut with the right tool, and easy to hot glue and tape. It is kind of expensive if you buy it, but I have a vendor link here that I have recently used, and I was very happy with both their prices and their shipping time. I don't know about their politics. Hopefully they're not horrible. And then foam pipe insulation is the same basic thing, but that's where it is right here, in case you're wondering where foam pipe insulation appears in this picture. It is made of basically closed cell foam. You can buy it at Home Depot. I can't get the next thing. Oh, there they all go at once. Very deep, very durable, cheap, so bendy, good for doing battle. I have one here. See if I can move this back a little. It's sold in 8-foot lengths, and it is almost impossible for a child to hurt another child with it. So it's great for making lightsabers, knight swords, anything that kids might be tempted to whack each other with. And when I am doing blacklight work, I like to cover them with blacklight reactive tape. In this case, we just used actually athletic tape and then painted it with blacklight reactive paint, and it basically becomes a glowing line that you can use to make things in the air under a blacklight. Makes great birds. But also you can have students connect them to make larger pictures, spell words. I'm a big fan of blacklight. Right. And then I'm going to talk about fabric next. As you can see, there's a lot of it behind me. I actually hate to sew though. I am a hot glue girl. So what I look for is 4-way stretch fabric. I'm standing in the fabric store and check, will the edges fray? If the edges will fray, that is so bad. I hate it. Then you get those little strings all over the place and it's the worst. So I will spend extra to get fabric that won't fray, because this project right here is the superhero project I'm working on right now. This is totally a no sew, no glue project. We use sticky foamy. These are tunics. You just cut a strip of fabric and then you cut a little X in the middle for their heads, as you can see here. Students choose their tunic material, their belt material, and they design their masks to match their hero character costumes. Then they do some stage combat and a monologue about all of their hero things. I don't think sewing is that scary. I just don't like to sew. Yes, Catherine Trumbull mentioned Chicago Creative Reuse Exchange as a source of materials and supplies. See, I make all my garments out of foam, Ariel. That's why I can use hot glue for my garments. But I agree with Ariel. Do not ever use hot glue as a seam on a garment because that's just a hot mess. And never glue non-stretch trim to stretchy fabric, except like I've done here. Okay, PVC. This is, I didn't bring it in here because my space is smaller than fits. This is a group of students building the shoe for Ickle Me, Pickle Me, Tickle Me 2. So they designed the dimensions for this. The goal was a larger than a person size puppet. PVC pipe is cheap. And that blue stuff you see there is also PVC. You can buy thinner PVC in giant rolls if you need curved PVC. Then I think I probably used 3/4 inch for this frame. But this, I used 1 inch PVC. This is a maze made by my students in Pop-Up Museum curriculum. This was a group of students with learning disabilities, mostly processing disabilities and learning delays. So I gave them the outline of the hallway and told them that they couldn't make any passage narrower than 2 blocks. And they drew me what they wanted for their maze. You can see where I kind of helped them figure out some of the details. Then I took these straws and made them models of what they were going to build to be these things. And then we took 1 set of straws at a time with the corresponding cut PVC length, and they basically assembled it like Tinker Toys using the set of straws as a model, and we moved each section into place as it was finished. We covered it with lightweight fabric and left an aisle down the side for a fire escape where the fabric was unattached down one entire side of the maze. Yeah, when I want to be able to take apart a PVC construction, I reinforce the connections with gaff or duct tape instead of glue. I'll wrap it around nice and tight and leave a little pull tab tucked under. So when you break down, you can pull that tape off without cursing and screaming as much. And also don't do it in front of the children. Okay. Then, sorry, somehow I went fabric, PVC fabric. So here's the finished, these are 4th graders. So I don't mind that part of their toe is collapsing in. This is the Ickle Me, Pickle Me, Tickle Me 2 project when it was done, which used PVC fabric. The wings are made out of cardboard and they open and close. This puppet has an operating rubber band mouth. His arms go up and down. This guy's hand is a hand and rod puppet. So his arm is rod operated and his head is a hand. So a group of 5 students made this all together. Some of them specialized on making these puppets. 1 kid just specialized on the wings and 2 others specialized on building the boot or the shoe. And this front part that's a different color is a flap that opens so a 3rd human actor can come out and be the 3rd Ickle Me, Pickle Me, and Tickle Me 2. Supposed to be an old beat up shoe. All right, now comes the part where I don't have as many of the beautiful illustrations as I'd like, but bubble wrap is a great way to cover something up that's all lumpy and make it nice and smooth without making it a lot heavier. Plus, it is a good reward for children to give them a square of bubble wrap that makes them very happy. I often give students scraps as a reward if they're the kind of student who likes that, because we end up with a lot of scraps of cool stuff. Wire, does it say armature wire? No. I use armature wire when I need a strong inner structure, and I'm sorry, it doesn't say that on here. I'm skipping some of these that will be filled in more detail in the future, so feel free to come back to this presentation. Oops. And friendly plastic, just write it down and look it up. It's little beads, you melt it in warm water, you form it with your hands, and then it turns into hard plastic. And it's great for making claws, vampire teeth. It is safe to put in your mouth because it's what is inside all those adjustable vampire teeth that they send out at Halloween. And if you have students who are really tactile students, it's really fun to let them just melt and reshape the same blob of friendly plastic over and over again. Okay, cutting tools. This is probably the last section I'm going to do to make sure Ariel gets in her time. But if I don't tell you all about cardboard knives, why am I even here? Okay. I hit the thing and then it like doesn't do anything and then it does that. Okay. Okay, so cardboard knife. Can you put it on me live, please, Ariel? Make me be the star of the show. for this presentation. I will find my thing. Is that a thing? That didn't work.
So I made your box the giant box.
Oh, okay, great.
So you're
Great. So I will assume you can see me big. I can only see me small. This is a cardboard knife. That's what it's called. If you find the real cardboard knife, they will be yellow. It is canary, like the bird. It has a very fine serrated edge. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what you can do with a cardboard knife. This is cardboard. Oh, half circle. It's great at cutting curves, circles, and it's great at quickly cutting the flaps off of boxes. So that's thing one about the cardboard knife. But wait, there's more. This is one of the pieces of foam I experimentally ordered off of the foam website. It's a solid foam tube. You will never cut foam with scissors again. And it's so satisfying. I will say if you give students foam in this, they will just keep chopping foam into smaller pieces. So make sure they have an assignment before you put it in their hands. You between this and the cardboard knife, that really makes building puppets for kids this age easy. But wait, there's more. This is fur. If you've ever worked with fun fur, of course, not real fur. If you've ever worked with fun fur, you know that it makes a massive fluffy mess when you cut it. And the traditional lore is to cover this side with plastic tape, clear plastic tape, so that anything that comes off when you cut it gets stuck to the tape. So that's a good idea if you don't have a cardboard knife. But if you do have a cardboard knife, you can cut the fabric from the back. And when you pull it apart, you will have very little fluff. Oops, sorry. I don't know if I did that part on camera. When you pull it apart, you'll have very little fluff come out of it. The total amount of fluff that came out of it was this little bit of fluff. My table, not covered in fluff. What? This has made it possible for me to reintroduce fur into my puppet making process. So depending on how your fur is backed, it may be easier or harder to cut through it on the back. And this is something that I would probably cut fur as a teacher rather than let the students do it, whereas I will let them use it. I would let responsible 3rd grade, 4th grade on up use this to cut cardboard or foam. And then there's also, this is the next thing, and I'll probably make this the last thing, Ariel, so you can do the things you need to do at the end. There's also cardboard knives made specifically for younger students. And I put the whole box of it over here and now I can't find it. But I did get one out. No, I didn't. Okay. This is another cardboard tool. This goes in my joining section, but I'm going to jump to it. This comes with cardboard screws. If you search cardboard screws on the old internet, you will find them. Better than I can find mine right now. Okay, this is a cardboard screw. It is a little blue screw. This is one of the longer ones. They also come slightly shorter. This one purports to hold 6 sheets of cardboard. And the smaller ones are 2 to 3 sheets of cardboard. And they come with this tool, which is a screwdriver and hole punch, and this little tool, which is for when you have a really tight space that you can't reach a whole screwdriver into. You can put this around your finger and get in to still do the screw inside the tight space. So if I take my cardboards that I cut up earlier, I take my tool and I poke through where I want to attach them. Poke through, make a hole, set the cardboard screw, and use the screwdriver end to screw it in. And this is something that they can use all the way down to kindergarten to make large scale cardboard sculptures. It does not work as a hinge, by the way. If you need like a pivot point, don't do that because it'll fall apart as you spin it. But it does hold cardboard together really well. This is what we used for a lot of the major attaching that we did in that giant pop-up book piece. So I think that puts me out of time. As you can see, there's some more stuff on here, but nothing that will revolutionize your life the way that cardboard knife will, if you didn't already know about it. And if you want to go through and see the names of some of the other things, hot glue, yo, see the names of some of the other things that I have on here, feel free. I will be continuing to update this presentation as I'm using it for other things in the future. But I need to turn things over to Ariel now and let her wrap up. And I can stick around for a minute or two for questions afterwards as well, if necessary. Ariel, I'm going to punt it your way.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yay, we figured out the screen sharing part. Excellent. Okay, so I just wanted to, first of all, thank all of you for being here. We had a wonderful turnout. This was gorgeous. I am even more in love with Emily than I was before, professionally, let's put it that way. And this is the first of a series of 5 institutes. So Emily is part of our Constellation cohort. There are 5 of them. They are all just as brilliant, but different than Emily. So if you have enjoyed this, our next session is on January 26th, and that is with Asia Calcagno, and her session is called Decentering Skills and Centering Community, Writing in the Arts Classroom. So if you want to go ahead and register for that one, I'm popping that into the chat. There it is. And after that, we will have Cleo Goldberg, and they are absolutely freaking fabulous. Their session is called Gender Inclusion for the Arts Educator. So those of you who are working with young people who are really exploring the different genders that exist or making up their own, this is a great way for you to learn about that and practice some things in a place where there will be as little harm as possible to young people or other people in general. And teaching artists, yes. So I've just put the link to register for that one. That one is February 23rd, and that is a 4 to 6. So if you like later in the afternoon, that's a good one for you. And then finally, and this is super important, I have an exit survey. And those of you who have been to any of our institutes, you know that we always give you an exit survey. But I am trying to get more people to participate in our surveys for multiple reasons. Number one, and this is always the first one, which is that we want to make sure that the learnings that we're creating for you are working for you. But also, Ingenuity is a nonprofit organization, and we have funders and board members that want to know the impact of our presentations so that we can get more resources to do more things that you will like. So I would like to get 75% of the people who attended this session to fill out this survey. It will take you less than 3 minutes, so you can click on the link right now and do it. That means that I need at least 22 people to take this survey. Okay, so aside from that, thank you so much, Emily. This was great. There were many times where my jaw dropped or I yelped. Courtney was laughing at me because
it was when I cut the fur, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, actually, I think when you cut the foam, I was like, why have I been cutting foam with scissors?
It's so
Why?
revolutionary.
Why? And also affirmed a lot of the things that I've done in my classroom or that I've done in my cosplays. So thank you so much, Emily. And thank you to all of you. Click that link, y'all.
Click it. Is that helping? That might not be helping. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Robbie. Robbie helped me workshop my presentation.
Yes. And stay tuned because we're trying to plan some things where you might be able to engage with Emily again in this academic year. So we'll see what happens.
I enjoy to be engaged with.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.